Hello, BookTube. We're continuing my library tour from the other side. And we are in bookcase number 2, shelf number 4, subsection B. And it's a longer shelf, so we're going to try to get through this just as quickly. I'd like to keep these to 20 minutes apiece, which partly is my own fault, because if I cut down on the bloviating, that would do it. But also, we can group books. There are quite a few books on this shelf that are by the same author, so we can try to group some of them. I've also, when I finished yesterday's video, I really studied this whole wall of shelves and realized that I do indeed want to do the plan that I mentioned, which is part and parcel of making a library tour, is that you rearrange as you go and prune as you go, I hope. And my science fiction and fantasy mass market paperbacks are not all in the same place, and they should be. All of my romance is in the same place, although you can see some science fiction and fantasy right there, but those are trade paperbacks. Those don't count. All the romance mass market paperbacks are in the same place. Seems to me that if I have a whole bookcase double stacked full of science fiction and fantasy paperbacks, they should all be in the same place too. And they aren't. So when I'm done with this wall, I'm going to leave everything a mess here. And when I'm done with this wall, I'm just going to take an hour and redo this entire bookcase so that it's all sci-fi and fantasy. But first, we'll do this shelf and the next one. So the first batch that we can do is John Brunner, the great science fiction author John Brunner. And this must be a vein of paperbacks that I hit at the Brattle Bookshop, because I have a ton of John Brunner, but in paperbacks in my hand, I have none of his great books. He wrote 3 great novels, and I don't have any one of them. I don't think that any one of them. I have Bedlam Planet. I have The Long Result, this weird cover there. I have Catch a Falling Star. All these old mass market paperbacks. Oh, okay, I have another copy of The Long Result. I have Total Eclipse in this old Daw paperback. I have Born Under Mars. I have another copy of Bedlam Planet, so 2 copies of 2 of his minor works. They're still good, but they're not as good as he can do. Then Time Scoop and The Atlantic Abomination. So all of this potboilery John W. Campbell, John Brunner, but not any of his big, terrific books. And I don't think I have them anywhere else. I just think I don't have them. Then we have another author that we can group. We've seen this author before. Yes? Yes, we saw this author before. All right, I'm not going to be able to show you where, but the author is Randall Garrett. In this case, co-writing with Vicky Hadron. And this is the Gandalara Saga. So the Gandalara Saga number 1 and then number 2. I don't have the individual books. The Steel of Wraithscar, The Glass of Discornus, The Bronze of Adarta, The Well of Darkness, The Search for Ka, and The Return to Adarta. These are body dysmorphia novels. There's an old professor who gets transported to a fantasy world where he's not just in the fantasy world, he's also in a fantasy body. He's in a body with abs. And they're quite good. I haven't reread them in a while. I found these mass market paperbacks, these collected volumes, but I haven't reread them. So I should get to that. Okay, then we have a block of novels by James P. Hogan. We have Thrice Upon a Time. There is a cat, a suit of armor, a super hottie. This is a Rowena cover, of course. And those of you who were born in the 21st century are going to wonder what that thing is on the table. That is a computer. That is a desktop computer. That's supposed to look a little bit futuristic, but the real versions that came out just a few years after this didn't look all that different from that. They weighed 500 pounds. Then we have Inherit the Stars, The Gentle Giants of Ganymede, and Giant's Star. So all by James Hogan. A little bit of a stodgy author for me, but I do like him. I do enjoy him. His books have a lot of meat on the bone. Then we have 2 books by David Brin. We have Sundiver, battered mass market paperback, and we have Startide Rising, and I'm sure this is not my only copy of Startide Rising. Somebody put a plastic covering on this thing. But I'm grateful that they did, but it wasn't me. I didn't do it, obviously, because I can't put it back where it belongs. And these 2 are set in the same universe. They're set in the Uplift universe. In fact, they give birth to the Uplift universe of David Brin. And they're fantastic. They are wonderful. They're wonderful, I would argue, in very different ways. This is a space opera type, lots of aliens, lots of shoot-em-ups, almost a thriller. It's got a lot more going on than that, but it's very, very plot-driven. This is plot-driven as well, but at the heart of this novel is a relationship. Grief is the heart of this novel, and the best payoff in the book. There's a climax, of course. There are stakes involved, but the best climax in the book is the climax involving that relationship, and it doesn't happen until right at the end. It'll rip your heart out. Then we have another group here. This is M. John Harrison. I have his book, The Floating Gods, in these old Timescape paperbacks. And also 2 copies of his book, A Storm of Wings, in Timescape. I do not have the Pastel City in Timescape with the Michael Whelan cover, I believe. I don't have that, and I wish I did. I should have it. And I'm pretty sure I no longer have a copy of Viraconium Nights in mass market paperback. These are Viraconium novels. These are set in the weird, surreal city of Viraconium, and they are incredibly good. They're amazingly good. I have a trade paperback that collects them all, and I have an ebook of that trade paperback. But I fell in love with these things as mass market paperbacks, as Timescape paperbacks. In fact, it was Pastel City that I fell in love with first. And Pastel City by M. John Harrison is a perfect example of what I've talked about in this library tour so far, which is that I only got it because it was a Timescape book. I had no idea what it was. And I read it. I got it because it was Timescape, and they were so reliably enjoyable. And then I got all the others. Okay, all right. Well, my plan has gang a glee here, because this is a mass market paperback of 10,000 Light Years from Home by James Tiptree. This is a short story collection, and I have all of Tiptree in mass market paperback, but obviously not with this book. So there are no others on this shelf. So what does this have? Those of you who are Tiptree fans, I don't know how many of you are Tiptree fans. I don't know how many Tiptree fans there are, but I should probably say what's in here. Yes. How 1970s? You don't have a table of contents. All right. Well, we can look from the publication, the copyright information. We'll have everything that we need. This is an introduction by Harry Harrison, but the stories it has are "And I Awoke and Found Me Here on the Cold Hills Side," "The Snows Are Melted, the Snows Are Gone," "The Peacefulness of Vivian," "Mama Come Home," "Help," "Pain-Wise," "Faithful to Thee, Terra in Our Fashion," "The Man Doors Said Hello To." So this is not a particularly strong anthology of James Tiptree. "Forever to a Hudson Bay Blanket," "I'll Be Waiting for You When the Swimming Pool is Empty," "I'm Too Big But I Love to Play," which has creepy elements that do work, "Death of a Salesman," "Mother in the Sky with Diamonds," and "Beam Us Home." And "Beam Us Home" is a Star Trek story, in a way. In a way, as it has been called, and I strongly second this, it's the ultimate Star Trek story. It's not a Star Trek pastiche story, but it is the ultimate Star Trek story. But I have other James Tiptree collections. I don't think we've seen any. Have we? Here, I have 2 novels in mass market, "Up the Walls of the World" and "Brightness Falls from the Sky." I think we saw "Brightness Falls from the Sky." And then I have the other short story collections. There's 10,000 Light Years from Home, but there's also Out of the Everywhere, Star Songs of an Old Primate, and Warm Worlds and Otherwise. They are here somewhere. They're just not with this book. Okay, then we have On Wings of Song by Thomas Dish. This was its first paperback cover, and then I believe it had a second paperback cover where it's still a boy, a young man, flying into the air, but it's over a futuristic city, and he's got, futuristic garb on, where here it's just the cornfields of Iowa. And this Let's see here. This came out in 1980, and it is set. I believe it's been a while since I reread this, but it is set. It came out in 1980, and it is set in the future. But the future is our distant past. The future is like 1990s or something like that, I think. Okay, then we have R.A. McAvoy. We've already seen R.A. McAvoy for Damiano's Loot. Or Damiano, one of the others. This is very haphazard. I should have all of these. I should have at least the whole of the Damiano trilogy. And then maybe any other R.A. McAvoy. I really like this author, but I don't think I even have Tea with Black Dragon in mass market. This is The Third Eagle, with this inimitable cover artwork. This is a standalone science fiction novel that I really enjoyed. Okay, all right. What I'm trying to say is R.A. McAvoy is not a standalone author. I have at least one of the Damiano books, so I ought to group them together. And when I do this big rearrangement, I will group everybody together. This next one is Robert McCammon. I know he's got much bigger fans out there than I am. I'm not a fan of horror novels, just in general. I'm not a fan of horror novels that are trying to scare me or creep me out. They don't do it, and since that's a large part of their purpose, they've all just fallen flat with me usually. And that applies also to Robert McCammon. He wrote what I acknowledge is a very good vampire novel. But I don't have any of his other books. I have them as ebooks, but I don't have any of his other paperbacks. But I have The Wolf's Hour, because this is not trying to scare me. It's not trying to creep me out. These are the adventures of a werewolf, but he's not the Lon Chaney type werewolf. He is in control of his own transformations and is therefore a kind of superpowered agent against the Nazis. And as a result, this book reads like no other werewolf novel I've ever read, and I really, really like it for that. I really, really enjoy it. But he's all by himself for a reason. This next guy is not all by himself for a reason. He shouldn't be. This is Gordon Dixon. This is a Dorsai novel, and I have a bunch of Dorsai novels in paperback. I just need to find them and put them all together. This is Lost Dorsai, and it is also from that era when mass market paperbacks, very briefly, had these illustrations, all by the same guy. They were never illustrated by anybody else, but they were illustrated by the same guy. And this is set in Gordon Dixon's Dorsai world, a future universe where the human race is spread out to a few different planets, and they are all in a kind of quasi-political, quasi-commercial pact with each other. And they all trade in whatever their specialties are. And the Dorsai world is so small and rocky and barren that it doesn't have anything in the way of material to trade. So the Dorsai trade themselves. They train themselves up to be the greatest tacticians and warriors anywhere in the human population. And so they trade themselves out for mercenaries or troop leaders or whatnot. Oftentimes, if you are a faction on a planet, and you're squabbling with another faction on a planet, and you really want to win, well, the Dorsai don't come cheap. So you might order a Dorsai commander. You might hire a Dorsai commander for your own regional troops. You're still increasing your chances of victory enormously. And of course, if you have all the money in the world to spend, you could hire a platoon of Dorsai who are effectively unbeatable. That's not the only. They aren't tyrannical, so they aren't trying to take over the rest of the human worlds. But they're not anyone you want to mess with, including individually. And this is the main story in this book is about a Dorsai who decides to be a pacifist, and it's terrific. But there's also a story in here called. This one is just about the main character, who is a Dorsai who does not believe in fighting. He rejects the military traditions of his world. But I have other Dorsai books. I'm looking for them now off camera. I know I have others. At least 3 others. They ought to be with this one. Okay, then we have a block of Robert Heinlein. Okay, I must have I've got these for the cover. These are all old Del Rey science fiction Robert Heinlein novels or collections with Darrell K. Sweet covers. And I know that Darrell K. Sweet did more of these, probably 4 or 5 more of them that I don't have, that I've never seen. They will turn up. Eventually, maybe, they will turn up. But again, I have these mass markets from Del Rey, but I do not have Stranger in a Strange Land. When I should. The mass market paperback, the famous mass market paperback with the man and the woman on the cover grokking, I should have that. I read that book over a long, hot Iowa summer. I read it and reread it, trying to figure out what it was. But instead, I have minor stuff, good stuff, but minor stuff. Have Spacesuit Will Travel, Rocket Ship Galileo. These terrific covers. And finally, Space Cadet. I have these three, but I don't have any other Hline, which is a little bit odd. Okay, all right. Then we have another block. See, we will get through this. We'll get through this in well under 20 minutes. I have another block. This is Julian May. This is the Pliazine Exile books that Julian May started out with. The Many-Colored Land. These all have these beautiful wraparound covers. Although technically there's only one cover for the first two, and this is a story set again in the future of humanity, where a scientist in France discovers a time portal that leads millions of years back into the past to the Pliocene. It exists only there. It can't be moved. There appear to be no other time portals anywhere on the planet, and it's only one way. You can go through it to the Pliocene, but it doesn't stay open. You can't come back to the present day, which is the future day in the series continuity. So it's a one-way trip, and you would think that would make it a very limited interest, but no. In this future human world, there are humans who, for one reason or another, want to make that trip. They'll be stranded in the Pliocene with its gigantic megafauna and its unpredictable environment and its total lack of technology of any kind. They'll be stranded away from their world. They'll never see their loved ones again. But some of them want to make that journey, whether they're scientifically curious, or they want the adventure, or they have nothing left to live for, or they're suicidal, whatever it is. In the Many-Colored Land, we follow a group of them through that portal into that ancient world, where they discover something that all the humans that have gone through the portal before them have also discovered, and none of them have ever been able to tell the present day because it's only one way, which is that millions of years ago, a quarreling group of aliens landed on Earth and set up shop in the region of where this time portal drops people off, and they've been just systematically enslaving every human that comes through. And they try to enslave our group of heroes as well, only it doesn't go well. It doesn't go well at all. We have the Many-Colored Land, that's number one. And then number two is the Golden Torque, and you can see that is just the cover of the first one reversed. Then number three is the Nonborn King. That is one of our major characters who is displaying on this cover the many superpowers that Julian May gives to human beings. Human beings are psionically operant. So all human beings have at least a tiny bit of psionic latency. But some human beings have those gifts in such degree that they are operational. There's basically telekinesis, there's basically telepathy, there's basically a kind of redaction, a kind of healing. There are 5 or 6 meta-talents, and different humans have different ones in different degrees. No one has them all in any huge degree until you start to muck around with their minds. And unbeknownst to these aliens in the past are using metal torques to mind control the humans that go through them, and maybe give them. They also use torques to give the Ramapithecines, the human ancestors in the world, limited meta abilities. And it turns out that when you muck around with some of the humans that went through, you drastically increase their meta abilities, drastically, so that they become powerful enough to affect the balance of power in the whole of this alien-dominated world. And that's what we see on this cover. We see Aiken Drum using some of his powers. And then the fourth book in the original series, which is The Adversary. This terrific cover. You've got all kinds of friends of the artist on the cover there at the bottom. You can barely make it out. And The Adversary introduces an entirely new element to this Pliocene world. We don't ever go back in these books. We don't ever go back to, 24th century Earth or whatever. We stay in the Pliocene. But there's a new element that's added here, which is that, unbeknownst to the people in the original 3 books, before our present group of humans goes through this portal, another group of humans went through it who were unbelievably psionically operant and who are still in this world. They don't want any trouble, but they have superpowers every bit equivalent to the ones of the humans that we know, that are the cast we follow through. And that introduces Mark Remillard, who's my favorite character in all of these books. And of course, the Pliocene Exile books were a modest hit in terms of SFF publishing in America, so Julian May kept writing them. Wrote the backstory to long before these characters, when humans entered into the intergalactic union that caused them to raise their operant metaphysics. Those are really, really good. And there are a couple of others, too. And it became such a sprawling mythology that Julian May produced a Pliocene companion. And this is all of the characters and all of the terms and everything that's used in the original quartet of novels explained. And I didn't, much like with the Barsoom companion, I didn't think when I got this that I really needed it, and I didn't. It turns out if I'm paying attention, I don't really need it, but it's nice to have anyway. Okay, then we have another block of books, but these are not all by the same. Yes, they're not all by the same person. The person involved is Edmund Hamilton, and among all the other pulp that he produced, I almost used a different word, among all the other pulp that he produced in a lifetime of producing pulp, he created a character called Captain Future, and I fell in love with Captain Future, so I have lots of Captain Future novels, not all of which are written by him. There's this one, Outlaw World, where you've got this chasm and these giant snow apes crawling through it, and then the very last thing your eye sees is the terrified humans. Then you've got the Comet Kings. But then you have Operation Outer Space by Murray Leinster. This might not actually be a Captain Future novel. I don't know why I have it grouped with these. I got it purely for that great cover. What a fantastic cover. Then Manly Wade Wellman wrote the Solar Invasion, which is a Captain Future novel. And finally, Brett Sterling wrote Danger Planet. You know, now that I'm thinking about it, I'm wondering if it was Edmund Hamilton who wrote these after all, or if maybe Brett Sterling introduced Captain Future, and maybe Brett Sterling is Edmund Hamilton. I don't know. When it comes to these pulp things, I don't know. But I love these books. The Captain Future is a totally jut-jawed, utterly heroic human, and he is aided in his quest by a disembodied brain, an android, a robot. The future, man. They are terrific. But I think there are more. Okay, so we'll leave Operation Outer Space out of here, because I don't think that's a Captain Future novel. But I have these 4, and I believe there are others in mass market that I just haven't found. And then finally, we can finish up this shelf with Patricia McKillop. I found her Head novels. So the Riddle Master of Head, these terrific covers. Then Harpist in the Wind, and Air of Sea and Fire. I found all 3 of these. They're all in perfect condition. So they will take a read when I have a yen for massive fantasy rereads, massive trilogies of fantasies being reread, which does happen. I do often have that kind of a feeling. So that is this shelf. That is subsection B. So we will do subsection C next time, and it is also large groups of authors. So it should be possible to get through it in one. So we'll be done with bookshelf 4 in our next installment, our next thrilling installment. Then we move on to the peak of Everest, which is stacks and stacks of books. They aren't on shelves. So I don't know how I'm going to film that. I actually don't know how I'm going to do it. It won't work this way. But it won't work any other way. There's no shelf or anything up there to do it. I don't know how I'm going to do it. I'll figure out a way. I'm determined to do this. I think that with 2 exceptions that I can think of off the top of my head, I think that will be the hardest thing to film. There's one section of this library tour that I have no idea how I'm going to film it. There's no place anywhere nearby. It's far off the floor, even. So there's no shelf, no tripod could reach that far. I think for that segment, I'm pretty much going to have to hold my phone in my hand while balancing on a stool, which is going to give a lot of you conniption fits, and I don't want to do that. So I don't know how. I might have to resort to the last refuge of the Dorcas Malorcas when they do a library tour, is to pull the books off the shelf and just set them on a table and talk about them. So it's called a library tour because you're touring your library, no matter how hard that is. But I might have to resort to that for the shelf that's up in the sky. I might have to resort to that. and we're a long, long, long way off from there. That will be the autumn. And the next shelf is going to be easy. I can still sit. But after that, we don't know. Find out. We'll find out together. But I'll wrap this up for now, and I'll see you then. Thank you, BookTube.